Hey everybody, welcome back to Allen House Sound. This is Dave, and today we've got a question and answer session. Today we're going to be covering a couple different things here. We've got Aux Subs, we've got EQing electronic drums, we have multi-tracking multiple sound consoles, or multiple X32s in this case, and a few other questions to cover. So stick around, we've got a lot to talk about. All right, welcome back. So in these sessions, we go through the comment section and I pick out a couple different questions that maybe you have or have just come up and I haven't had a chance to answer them yet. And I'll put this video out and then I'll go back and answer them. But I want to get my thoughts to you and maybe this will help you out. So let's dive into the first question here. All right, so the first question comes to us from Chad. Chad says, we purchased subwoofers for our sound at church. We have the X32 producer. How can I assign the subwoofers to a different output controlled separately from the mains? All right, Chad, so to do this, we consider this an aux sub. Sometime we used to use auxiliary outputs. Now we call them MixBUSes in the X32. And so what you would do is you would treat this MixBUS, you would pick one MixBUS, and you would build your mix. So if you're trying to add maybe bass guitar, kick drum, maybe some synths or pads or keys into that, if you need some of the low end out of those, you can go ahead and bring those up and you're going to treat it just like a monitor. Now, make sure that you deselect the stereo LR bus. That's the button that's usually just to the left of the console. And usually it's going to be orange. Make sure it's not orange or this mix is going to go out to your house as well. So once you have built the mix that goes into it, you also have the capability of EQing it. So if maybe you're running an old school amplifier that doesn't have any signal processing on it or low pass capability, then you can use the EQ on that mix bus to cut out the top end and send just the low end signals to this amplifier. Now you're going to go into the routing, make sure you go into the routing and set it up so that you make sure that mix bus is coming out the specified output on the back of the console, and then just hook up an XLR to your amplifier and off you go. If you needed to use an auxiliary out instead, maybe it's right next to you, and if it is an older amplifier and it just has a 1/4 inch in instead of XLR input, then you can go into routing and aux out and make sure that you set up and route your mix bus over to an auxiliary out and then send that over. You've got 1/4 inch options and RCA options if you need that, if it's really old. All right, let's go on to the next question. All right, this question comes to us from Frederick Cortez. Frederick says, how can I multi-track two consoles? Can I combine them into one and send that all into my DAW? So, Frederick, when we look at this, the output of one console has 32 channels out. So if you're using two consoles, maybe one is monitor and one is front of house, or something else like that, maybe you are putting both together and you're mixing 64 channels, then you don't have that capability. You're going to have to run a DAW or a laptop on each one of them to multi-track record them. I do recommend doing the clap feature at that point and making sure you get a nice solid start point that you can then sync them up in post-production if that's what you need to do. Now, if you have less than 32 channels, let's say I just ran a Christmas gig not a week ago, and I only had 16 inputs, but I had two consoles running. Well, if for some reason I needed to record both of them, then you do have the capability that you can run 16 channels from one into the other console and make sure that you go into routing and card and make sure that you've got the appropriate output set to go into your DAW. That way you can record, again, up to 32 channels right into the DAW. Let's go to the next question. All right, so this question comes to us from Donald Burns. Donald says, we've just moved another audio group set up our board. Oh, we've just moved, needs a comma. Another audio group set up our board. We have left, right, and center off a bus. We use those to control house volume, unknown why. We have live stream through a matrix, and now I can't mix separately from my mix. I guess this is fine and I can work around it, but I'm not comfortable. So Donald, the way I would fix this, I would take and set up your mix to go to your stereo left-right bus. That means the fader on the far right is where everything is being mixed. I would then send that mix to the matrices. In this case, you can have a pair of matrix 1 and 2 for left and right and just link those. And then you could also have matrix 3 for your other output, which would be your center channel. And now you've got the ability that you can EQ those differently if you need to, your left and rights versus your center channel. You can even set those up with a delay if you needed to as well, depending on the location and distance of where those are mounted to make sure that everything lines up to the ear at one time. Now, with the matrix, you would do a post fader send from the stereo left-right bus into the matrix. And that way, when you move your main fader, one fader, that controls the volume for all of your house mix. With that being said, I would then set up a stereo mix bus, because now you'll have 3 different mix buses available. I would take 2 of them, I would make a stereo mix bus, and I would set that up as a post fader mix on your stereo mix bus. I do have a video, I'll link that in the description below, and if I'm really good, I can pop it up here on the screen, one of these sides, and you can take a look at that after this video, and that's going to be a video that walks through how to set that up as a post fader stereo mix bus. Thousands of people have used this video, and it's a great way to go for your live stream. But changing your house mix over to your to the matrices will make your life a whole lot better and make you a lot more comfortable too. Thanks for the question. All right, the last question comes to us from O. Again, I'm going to call this guy O. This may be the same O that I featured in a previous Q&A. But anyway, his question is around EQing electronic drums. So here's what I'll say. Electronic drums are just samples. You've got pads and they go to a brain, and that brain just has drum samples and sounds in it. Some of them are really dry, some of them are really reverby. Depending on the type of kit that you have, you might have some other features you can add, reverb, or remove them. Here's what I recommend, because I've got a Roland TD4 that I've got in my practice space in my studio, and I use that occasionally. You can see my cymbals right here. This is my real kit, but in my studio I do have a Roland TD4, and if I ever have to record that, here's what I do. I record it dry. Then in post-production, I'll add reverb and things like that. This TD4 only has 2 outputs, a left and a right, so you get a stereo pair from it, which means your drummer has to know what they're doing, because you don't have the capability or the flexibility of remixing snare drum or hi-hats or kick drum or any of that stuff. You get their performance and that's all you get. Now, EQing, because they're samples, they're usually already EQ'd. You may need to tweak and change things a little bit for the mix, but overall, I don't really need to do much EQing on an electronic kit. Now, if you're running this live, this is a little bit different. If you're running it live, you need to add some reverb to this thing, number one. Make sure that you have some reverb that's added in, if not for anything else, added in for the drums, because dry electronic drums through a PA sound horrible. All right, so make sure you've got a reverb, even if you've got like a reverb for everybody. For me, I really love the vintage verb, but on drums, a lot of times I'll use the first one. It's a white color or cream color, and it's called Ambience. And I use that for drums. It adds a little top end shimmery reverb to the drums and makes the attack of the drums sound a little bit bigger. I don't need really the mid-range or the low end to carry on, but I want that top end to sound a little bit bigger and wider. So that's what I would use. The Ambience reverb is very helpful for you. Now, in terms of EQing, again, you may not need to EQ things too much unless you have some signal buildups that are in your room that are just things that you need to address. But for the most part, these samples that are coming out, again, are really clean, really well done. Even the cheaper drum kits have good samples nowadays. So add some reverb to it. Now, if you've got a really nice kit, say it's a Roland TD25 or 30 or I don't know what they're up to nowadays. Maybe they're into the 50s, but those Roland TD kits are really nice ones. Those have individual outputs for all of the drums. So you've got snare drum, you've got kick drum, you've got tom 1, 2, 3, and all that stuff. Those then give you the ability to bring into your console. A lot of times we used to run the Behringer 8-channel DI box because it was just a big DI box that would sit in a rack. We could run all of our inputs from the head into that rack, get DI signals, go into a snake, run them up to the console. That would give us a really nice signal path for the samples to come out of the drum head and then into the console. Then you've got the luxury, just like a regular kit, you can add reverb, you can do whatever you want with them, you can pan them and all those things. But in your terms of EQing, what I would say is this: in your PA, in your house, if you're mixing this in the house, make sure you have a subwoofer. A 15-inch sub, maybe an 18-inch sub if you're lucky. You don't need it so that you're running bass all through the house. You don't need to have, you know, like a big car stereo booming in your room. You don't need that. But a subwoofer is going to make these drums sound full and thick and rich. Otherwise, they're just going to sound really thin and top-endy. So make sure you've got a subwoofer. And if that's the case, you may need to add a little bit of low end into your mix. So there's that. Oh, I hope that helps you out. And for all of you that have watched this video, you've made it to the end. Congratulations. Thanks for watching the Q&A session. If you have questions, leave them on any of my videos. Leave them in the comment section below here. I'm happy to answer questions, happy to help you out in your mixing endeavors. And make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button. If you've got other people that you think would benefit from these Q&A sessions, I do have a playlist for my Q&A. You can go back and watch the previous couple as well. But for now, that's it, and we'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.